අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නාට වටිනා tab computer සහ data දීමනා. අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නාට වටිනා tab computer සහ data දීමනා.
නව පෑස් සබන් සහ ක්‍රීම් ජාත්‍යන්තර ළමා රෝග පිළිබඳ විශේෂඥයන් විසින් සායනිකව තහවුරු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
Tonight, get connected. Sri Lanka's foreign minister urges BIMSTEC members to take bilateral ties to another level.
Cooperation in the maritime sector through connecting ports to ports as well as developing ferry services. Such connectivity will undoubtedly enable the sharing of economic opportunities.
The light of day. The cabinet gives the go-ahead to present the IMF's Article 4 report to Parliament. The best choice. Economic experts say heading to the IMF, the most politically palatable move.
There is no alternative but to go and enter into a stabilization package with the IMF.
Look to the skies. An industry expert explains why solar is Sri Lanka's only option.
The rooftop program, where there's no infrastructure development, I would say it's minimal, is giving at an average selling price of around 19 rupees, and which is not tagged to the dollar.
All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 29th of March, 2022.
Life boy shampoo chuti, rupiah 70යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Bringing you news from across the island and the international stage tonight. This is First at 9 and I'm David Ebert. Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires addressed the 18th BIMSTEC ministerial meeting today, where he called for a strengthening of ties and for member countries to take connectivity to another level. The Foreign Minister called for the development of port-to-port connectivity and ferry services between BIMSTEC members, which he explained would be vital to ensuring the sharing of economic opportunities. The main BIMSTEC summit is set to take place tomorrow, featuring the heads of state of all member nations. The 18th BIMSTEC ministerial meeting was held today under the chairmanship of Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister, Professor G.L. Pires. During his address, Professor Pires welcomed the signing of a technology sharing facility between member states in the coming days during the rest of the summit and called for ties between the private sectors of the countries to be enhanced as well in order to take advantage of the economic shift towards Asia.
The signing of the transfer of technology facility in Colombo will pave the way for our countries to share technological know-how and promote technological advancement in all our countries. As the trajectory of global economic growth shifts towards Asia, the trade and investment component of BIMSTEC countries needs to be revitalized. Participation and networking among the private sectors in the region is a crucial step towards accomplishment of this objective.
Professor Pires also called for maritime transport in the Bay of Bengal region to be enhanced with the development of port-to-port connectivity and ferry services as well, which he explained would be crucial to ensure the sharing of economic opportunities between the people of the BIMSTEC member states.
The world has become interconnected through modern information technology and highly sophisticated transportation systems. This is even more so in a globalized economy where economic opportunities have been increasingly related to the mobility both of people and freight. High-intensity transport infrastructure and interconnected networks are commonly associated with high levels of development. Our region, with its vast maritime resources, has enormous potential to develop its maritime transportation sector and ports-to-ports connectivity. BIMSTEC should tap into these areas of potential cooperation through initiatives such as the blue economy that encompass all sectors from fisheries to transportation. Therefore, it is in the fitness of things, Excellencies, that BIMSTEC is taking concrete measures in working towards a blue economy model that benefits all our countries. Cooperation in the maritime sector through connecting ports to ports, as well as developing ferry services, will help promote people-to-people contact among the BIMSTEC countries. Such connectivity will undoubtedly enable the sharing of economic opportunities among our peoples.
Meanwhile, the governments of Sri Lanka and India signed memorandums of understanding yesterday during a meeting between Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris and India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar. The agreements include assistance in maritime, education, digital identity cards, power generation and the fisheries sector as well.
Sri Lanka and India have signed 6 memorandums of understanding yesterday during a meeting between Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris and his Indian counterpart Dr. S. Jaishankar. According to a release by the Indian High Commission to Colombo, the agreement signed included an MOU on the implementation of a unique digital identity program with Indian government grant assistance, an MOU for the setting up of a maritime rescue coordination center, an MOU on the implementation of hybrid power projects in 3 islands off the coast of Jaffna, an MOU on cooperation in the development of fisheries harbours in Sri Lanka, an MOU for the establishment of modern computer labs and the provision of smart boards with customized curriculum software in 200 schools in the Galle district, and an MOU between the Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service and the Bandaranaike International Diplomatic Training Institute. Dr. S. Jaishankar is currently in Sri Lanka for a 3-day official visit, concluded his first day of discussions on Monday. He was accompanied by a 5-member official delegation from the Indian Ministry of External Affairs for the bilateral and BIMSTEC engagements.
Bangladesh's Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen has called on his Sri Lankan counterpart Professor G.L. Peiris today on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC ministerial meeting. During the discussions, the Bangladeshi Foreign Minister pointed out that trade between the two countries are not satisfactory and the cause is poor communication between the two nations. As a solution to the problem, the Foreign Minister Momen called for the establishment of a direct shipping line between the two countries. Foreign Minister Momen went on to say that Sri Lanka and Bangladesh have been discussing the possibility of entering into a preferential trade agreement as well. The decision to suspend routine surgeries at the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital has been reversed today, as the Health Ministry has ensured supply of the necessary essential drugs needed to go back to business as usual. Meanwhile, the situation also caught the attention of Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who has issued instructions to the Indian High Commissioner in Colombo to look into how India can assist in resolving the issue.
Yesterday, Director of the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital, Dr. Arjuna Tilakaratne, announced that all routine surgeries at the hospital, including surgeries on patients already admitted, will be suspended until further notice. The decision was taken by him due to a shortage of several essential drugs and consumables used for anesthesia and surgery. However, the hospital director stated today that the decision has been revised as the Medical Supplies Division of the Ministry of Health has been able to supply the required drugs and consumables with immediate effect. Meanwhile, Indian External Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is currently in Sri Lanka on a 3-day official visit, also responded to a media report on the suspension of surgeries at the Peradeniya Hospital. In a tweet, Dr. Jaishankar revealed that he has directed the matter to the Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagle, to look into the possibility of how India can assist in resolving this issue.
The Cabinet has approved a proposal by Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa to present the International Monetary Fund's Article 4 report on Sri Lanka in Parliament. Further, Cabinet also greenlighted the provision of a New Year allowance of 5,000 rupees for 3.1 million families for the months of April and May.
At the Cabinet meeting last evening, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's proposal to implement a comprehensive, centralized control email and a collaboration platform has received the green light. This is expected to involve the opening of 100,000 user accounts, out of which 30,000 will be opened in the first phase. In the meantime, the Cabinet has also approved a Finance Minister proposal to introduce a temporary regulations and provisions to facilitate investment within the Colombo Port City until the Port City Economic Commission publishes its rules and regulations. The Cabinet has approved the publishing of the orders and for their submission to Parliament for approval. Further, the Finance Minister's proposal to present the International Monetary Fund's Article 4 report on Sri Lanka in Parliament was also given the green light. Meanwhile, following the Cabinet meeting, Energy Minister Gamini Lokuge reveals some relief measures approved by the cabinet.
සිංහල අවුරුද්දට අඩු ආදායම් ලාභීන්ට රුපියල් 5000 ගානේ මාස දෙකක් දෙන්න තීන්දුව කරා. අපි ගණන් බලලා තියෙනවා 31 ලක්ෂයක් විතර ඉන්නවා කියලා. ඒක මේවර මුදල් තියෙනවද? මුදල් තියෙනවා. මුදල් නැත්තම් දෙන්න බෑනේ.
Further, the minister also responded to the question of whether Sipetco fuel prices will be increased.
තවත් වැඩි කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි බලාපොරොත්තුවක් නැහැ. ඉතින් මිල වැඩි කරාට පස්සේ තව පාරක් වැඩි කරන්න.
In the meantime, Minister of Transport Dilum Amunugam announced that train fares for specific categories will see a hike, possibly from tomorrow, as a result of recent fuel price hikes.
And we'll be back with more local news right after this break.
Big 3.
Welcome back. Given Sri Lanka's current economic predicament, experts believe that there is no alternative but to go to the IMF in order to get a new mix of policies, as the island's policy response has only focused on individual elements of the current macroeconomic crisis instead of the whole issue itself. Emeritus Professor of Economics Professor Premachandra Atukorala says that seeking an IMF package is more politically palatable at the moment, as the funds from the global lender would help stabilize the island's balance of payments and can't be used for any other purpose.
In the face of a growing forex issue, the central bank took measures to float the rupee after having pegged it at 202 rupees and 99 cents against the US dollar in the hopes of attracting more inward foreign remittances from the country's expat workers. However, since the decision was taken, some economic experts have denounced the move to float the rupee and are pointing out to alternative measures that could have been taken before the country's economic situation spiraled out of control.
Exchange rate floating is not good policy. When you allow the exchange rate to float, it can lead to massive fiscal problem. Interest payment and debt repayment is going to increase massively because of the exchange rate floating.
Monetary should have been tightened more by higher margins. Second, fiscal policy should have been tightened primarily by restoring the tax structure that was there earlier. Can also introduce pricing formulas to manage demand for petroleum and electricity, so there are shortage in both. And also important one for investors, make a very clear announcement that government has a genuine and clear intention to restructure sovereign debt.
As such, Professor Atukorala adds that Sri Lanka needs a whole new policy mix, and the only way it can do this is by getting into a stabilization package with the International Monetary Fund.
There is no alternative but to go and enter into a stabilization package with the IMF. We need to open our access to international financial markets. You can't do it without a sound IMF package. IMF interest rate is going to be low. That is not the only advantage. IMF money does not go to the treasury to waste on various government projects and all that. This money strictly come to the central bank as balance of payment support. When that happens, one of the conditions of the IMF is that we need to remove quantitative import restrictions. Import tariff can be maintained at a high level, it is acceptable. When that happens, a lot of upheaval in the economy created by foreign exchange shortages and import control is going to go. Therefore, IMF package is going to be more palatable politically than what people think.
Meanwhile, speaking to Indivari Amuwatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 last week, President of the Solar Industries Association of Sri Lanka, Kushan Jayasuriya, explained how solar power is the only way Sri Lanka can get out of its energy crisis. Jayasuriya explained that with rooftop solar only costing 19 rupees to generate each unit and it not being pegged to the US dollar, the cost will be negligible in the years to come. President of the Solar Industries Association of Sri Lanka, Kushan Jayasuriya, says that electricity tariffs may need to be raised, otherwise the situation will become even more untenable than it is. With the government losing an estimated 6 to 7 rupees on each unit being produced, he says that this move will be inevitable.
We're talking about an energy crisis here, managing utilities supply within the country. Again, yes, we have an economic crisis. This is something that the government has admitted to. But at the same time, what measures are we taking here to spur an industry where we resort to renewable energy? Do we have policies that support renewable energy generation at larger scale?
In terms of policy side, we have a very sound and elaborated policy of 70% of renewable energy to be absorbed by 2030. So this is something we did not have earlier. So looking forward, what we are looking at is an efficient mechanism for people to invest on solar system. So if you look at a couple of months ago, we had a tender which was floated for multiples of 50 megawatt power plants, which had a very good response. I think about 500 applications were made, and I think 100 have been shortlisted. The issue of energy crisis has to be looked into detail because we are selling energy at a loss. So if you look at the statistics of 2019, our cost of production is about 22-23 rupees, and we are selling electricity at 16 or 17 rupees as an average. So this naturally will have to go for a increase in terms of electricity, otherwise we won't be able to manage this situation. The other aspect is for people to invest on renewable energy. This process has to be fast tracked. So investors don't want to wait for 2-3 years, going behind various institutes to do power plants.
Are you saying we still have bottlenecks and red tape when it comes to investment?
See, even as we speak, we have to get about 16 approvals to do even a 1 megawatt power plant, and that takes about 2 years. No foreign investor will do that.
Chasuri also adds that with fuel and coal prices having soared and with no signs of prices settling down, the only solution is to go with the much cheaper solar option. He explained that with rooftop solar costing around 19 rupees per unit, the fact that this is not tagged to the US dollar leaves it the obvious choice.
We should look at the root cause of the problem, which is far beyond the past 3 years. We have been selling electricity at a loss, and we have not focused on renewable energy, which is becoming cheap and more competitive. So therefore, still we have about 20% of diesel now costing almost 50-60 rupees. And we dependent on coal, which was 7 rupees or 9 rupees, now about 30 rupees, because a ton of coal was 70, maybe 6 to 7 months ago, but now it's 210. So I think we should foresee more renewables coming in. If you talk about solar energy, I think solar energy is one of the cheapest sources of energy, and out of which the rooftop program, where there's no infrastructure development, I would say it's minimal, is giving at an average selling price of around 19 rupees, and which is not tagged to the dollar. So if you look at the inflation, 10-15 years time, this is virtually peanuts.
Now, experts believe that lack of accessibility to healthy diet plans and regimes are the reason for the increased number of hospital admissions across the country. They also explain that the state could make major cost savings if the practice of nutritionists was promoted in the country, as prevention is always better than cure.
The 6th annual session of the Dietitians Association of Sri Lanka took place in Colombo last week under the theme Dietitians' Approach to Reduce Healthcare Cost Through Proper Practices. Delivering the keynote address at the event, past president of the Nutrition Society of Sri Lanka, Vishaka Tilkaratnam, pointed out that Sri Lanka could look at significant healthcare savings with a bigger focus on preventive measures such as the promotion of proper nutrition plans.
Sri Lanka is quite lopsided, as we know, in health investment, maybe 70 to 85%, and 20 to 30% in preventative. It should be the other way around. Nothing has happened to change this. If the patient is stressed out, sleeping 2 by 2 on that hospital bed, and one is sleeping under the bed, then what good is that? Where is the healing? Treatment is only one part. Healing is the other. And that is where your role is. So calculate the number of professionals in the multi-sector approach, have a good planning exercise, look at the time, look at the terms of reference, and look at our requirement. No one will be out of a job. We produce doctors at a great cost to treat and to medicate through pharmacopoeia. And actually doctors need not and should not be made to dwell on food science. While it's commendable that this course is there, we must always remember that a nutritionist, a food scientist, a dietitian has an in-depth knowledge of the components of food and the application of compositions. I think this is not interchangeable.
An Indian trawler with 4 Indian fishermen poaching in Sri Lankan waters have been seized by the Sri Lankan Navy during a patrol carried out last night. In the meantime, 1,418 kilograms of unauthorized fishing nets were also seized in the possession of a 25-year-old suspect during a special operation conducted by the Navy in coordination with the police in Uppukulam, Mannar.
The Sri Lankan Navy has seized another Indian trawler and 4 crew detected poaching in Sri Lankan territorial waters south of Delta Island during a patrol carried out last night by fast attack craft of the 4th Fast Attack Flotilla attached to the Northern Naval Command. This has been the second seizure of an Indian fishing vessel in less than a week after 2 Indian poaching vessels and 16 crew were seized on the 23rd of March. Regular patrols have been launched by the Navy in the past month to curb illegal fishing activities by Indian marine poachers. Meanwhile, the Indian vessel and its crew were escorted to the My Lady Fisheries Harbour and handed over to the Jaffna Fisheries Inspector through the Sri Lankan Coast Guard. In the meantime, during a special operation conducted by the Navy in coordination with the police in Uppukulam, Mannar on the 27th of March, a large haul of illegal fishing nets have been taken into custody. The 1,418 kilograms of unauthorized fishing nets had been stashed in a house in the Uppukulam area. In addition, a 25-year-old suspect has been arrested in connection with the seizure and has been handed over to the Mannar police for further investigations.
Welcome back. The latest data on export earnings for the month of February 2022 has depicted rather positive results amidst the current crisis, as the island's merchandise exports have risen by 9.91% to $1.05 billion. According to the Export Development Board, the figure has continuously stayed over $1 billion for the past 9 months.
According to data released by the Sri Lanka Customs, Sri Lanka's merchandise exports have increased by 9.91% to $1.05 billion last month in comparison to February 2021. Further, it is a 5.8% increase when compared to February 2020. Export Development Board Chairman Suresh Dimel said that the country's merchandise exports have continued to stay over the $1 billion mark since the start of this year. The figure has stayed above the $1 billion mark for 9 consecutive months. Export earnings from apparel and textile increased by 12.04% year-on-year to $494.82 million in February 2022, with strong performances in export of apparel and woven fabrics. On a year-on-year basis, exports of made-up textile articles declined by 0.26% last month in comparison to February 2021. Export earnings from tea in February this year, which comprised of 12% of merchandise exports, decreased by 10.38% year-on-year to $100.86 million. Export of tea packets and bulk tea decreased by 17.22% and 2.7% respectively in February 2022 compared to February 2021. Export earnings from rubber and rubber finished products have increased by 11.31% year-on-year to $93.17 million last month, with positive performance in exports of rheumatic and related rubber tires, tubes and gaskets, washers, seals, etc. of hard rubber. However, export of industrial and surgical gloves decreased by 7.55% year-on-year to $27.19 million in February 2022.
Meanwhile, in the Colombo Bourse, the all-share price index fell by a massive 494.74 points to end at 9,647.55 points today. The S&P SL20 index ended at 3,338 points, falling a loss of 167.12 points. Market turnover was 2.7 billion rupees. And now here's a brief report on what happened in the market today.
The market fell by 4.88% today and was halted for 30 minutes midday as the S&P SL20 index hit the 5% circuit breaker. In our view, the change in investor modes is a reaction to the rising market rates and macro headwinds. In addition, the ongoing energy crisis also would have impacted investor sentiment. In terms of turnover, today the market saw 2.7 billion rupees in turnover, 600 million higher than yesterday. Index-heavy counters like LLC Holdings, Browns Investment and Expo Lanka Holdings incurred steep price losses.
In the meantime, oil prices dropped today, extending losses from the previous day on signs of progress in talks between Russia and Ukraine to end their weeks-long conflict, with prices further pressured by China's new lockdowns to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Brent crude fell $6.51 to $105.97 a barrel, and US West Texas Intermediate crude was down $6.41 to end at $99.55.
And on that note, that's all the news we have for you tonight. We hope we catch you again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.